Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Mistwind from First Fish Games. Mistwind is a 2 to 5 player pick up and deliver game designed by Daryl Andrews, and if pick up and deliver isn't your thing, well, neither is it mine, and yet somehow I really like this game. This is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. In Mistwind, you're trying to get as many points as possible across 4 rounds of play, or 5 rounds in a 5-player game. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be having these transports and these outposts. You're going to be placing them down onto the board in order to build out your network in this game. What you're doing is every single round you're going to start, and every single one of the only 4 rounds. There's only 4 rounds, not a lot of time to get done all the things you want to get done, but in the game you're going to be taking these tokens over here, these little bit tokens, and every round you're going to start by removing one of them from play. So you have numbers 1 through 5, but you have to predict that you don't think you'll need the 4, you place it off to the side, and these are the only ones you have in play, but other players don't know what you have in play. From there, players are going to go ahead and start taking turns placing these down on the 4 action placement spots. It's effectively a worker placement with the numbered discs over here. So worker placement and route building and pick up and deliver and all those things. You're going to take one of these discs and you're going to place them either over here on this track over here, where you're primarily getting resources. This track over here is going to give you people cards, which will give you either points or in-game benefits or ongoing benefits. This track over here will give you specific 5 different actions that are in play that affect the game board. We're going to come back to those later. And then we have the 5 port locations, which is going to be one of the ways you're able to build new things onto the board by paying resources to do so, as well as possibly earning end-game benefits or end-of-round benefits. So, with that kind of brief clarity of what's going on over here, you're going to take one disc over here. So for example, let's pretend over here with my first disc, I put down a 1 over there on that location, and I bump up my steel by 2, my wood by 3, I bump up my what's it called, my krill by 1, and that's over there, that's done. And then from there, another player goes ahead and they go ahead and put down 5 on the resource track to try to go ahead and get a bunch of resources over there. They're going to get more money, but only 1 krill and 1 steel. We're going to have the next player over here go ahead and put down a 5 as well, but this time on this card, taking this card. They're going to pay 4 money to take this card, and this card is going to give them, it's going to be a one-time use card, that's this symbol. There's immediate cards, there's endpoint cards, there's ongoing cards, and then there's one-time use cards, which means you can hold on to this at any point and use that to put a whale into play. So I'm going to go ahead and put that off to the side because there is no other player over here. And then it's back to my turn. They've taken their spots, and these spots are now blocked. No one can go here, no one can go here, and no one can go here. And I'm going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to go ahead and build something on a, do I want to do that? No, I think I want to go ahead and build it. What do I have left? I have this 2 over here. I'm going to build this 2 over here. So I'm going to take this 2, and that means I'm going to build a transport or a location or an outpost on this location, which specifically is this one over here. Every port card has a specific location it's attached to, and if you're the last person to go here, you'll also get a benefit. And if you said, what mean last person? There's only 1 person per spot. Well, over here, here, and here, only 1 person can go, but to the ports, multiple players can go. I'm going to go ahead and I want to get a whale out in play, so I'm going to go ahead and play 1, 2, and 1, 2. In general, an outpost, a transport, is going to cost you 2 and 2, 2 wood and 2 steel, versus an outpost is going to cost you 1 wood and 1 steel, and I'm going to place it down in this location. And this is where the fun of the game starts, because as soon as you have those in play, at the end of every action, you have the ability to move all your transports on the board, and then either pick up or drop off, but you have to pay krill for each movement, which means it's going to start off as a very tight game and get more interesting as you go, because whenever you're leaving a location with an outpost or a transport, you don't pay krill. So as you build out a network, you'll be able to move more easily and cheaply around the board and get so much more done, but those first few rounds are going to feel very hard to get much done. To that end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look around the board. This location over here wants this over there. This location, this location over here also wants that. I think I'll just go ahead and move 1. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead. You know what? I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. Where do I want to go? That over here, what am I on right now? This location over here, I could just pick that up instead, which is not the worst either. I think money's a bit more important in early game, so I'm going to go ahead and move 1 down over here to this location, and then I'm going to pay a krill because I'm not leaving a location with an outpost or transport, and then I'm going to take one of those krills over there, one of that little good over there, and do that. So at the end of every action, all your transports can move and pick up or drop off, not both. And so that's going to be my move over there. I check if I accomplish any achievements, which I have not yet done so. We'll talk more about those soon, and we go to the next player's turn. So we're going to go ahead and continue this process over here. We have this player go over here. They'll go ahead and build a transport. Let's say they'll build an outpost down in this location over here, giving them some flexibility there. We'll have this red player over here go ahead, and they'll go ahead and put their disc on top of mine. Unfortunately, they're going to go ahead and also build a whale on that location. It's going to come back to me over here, and I have to try to figure out what I want to do. I have a 5 and a 3 left over here. I could go ahead and place my 5 down. You know, I'm going to do that. I'm going to place my 5 down over here. I'm going to draw 2 persona cards. Each of these actions are unique over here. We'll talk about them in a second, but I'm going to draw 2 character cards and pick one of them. These actually both give me the ability to go ahead and place down an outpost, but with a bit more flexibility in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one, discarding this. You don't have to pay for those in that case. I'm going to take this, and I could hold on to this for later. I'm not yet sure what I want to do with it, so I'm going to keep it right in front of me over here for now, and we'll deal with that shortly. And from there, we'll keep moving around the board, taking actions. And again, at the end of every action, you can start moving your whales around the board. Now, your transports around the board. Now let's go through what the various actions do in the game. So this action over here lets you perform one of the face-up ports special powers. So you can look down the bottom left corner, and you can pay 1 coin to go ahead and do one of those powers over there. This action will give you the first player marker, plus 2 krill, plus let you make any number of trades from the other resources. This spot will let you move a transport 3 spaces and lets you load or unload. So in addition to the fact that at the end of every action you can go ahead and move your transports and pay accordingly, that lets you pay without moving and also gives you an extra movement and pick up or unload. Over here, you can pay 2. You can build up to 2 transports and/or outposts at any ports, paying 3 per outpost and 5 for each transport, being able to put them out and down to the board. And this last one you already saw, which gives me access to getting characters in the game. Now let's go ahead and fast forward and just put a bunch of my posts out on the board so you can get a sense of what it looks like later in the game as we try to accomplish different actions as we go through this by putting down, you know, a transport down over here. And let's pretend that we have a resource in that transport, and we have a few of these locations on the board. And let me show you what a movement would look like once we have a bit of a network more set up. So I go ahead, I take my turn, I end my turn, and now I can start moving around the board. Over here, I'm going to pay 1 krill to move this guy over there, so 1. Then I'm going to move this one for free down to here, because I don't have to pay because I'm leaving there. And I can drop off this, selling it for this good, which I'll take this good and put it in front of me, which will give me a point, but also give me a coin that I can go ahead and trade that in. These are going to slide down, and new resources are going to come out. We're also going to go ahead and move this whale down here, and this whale could try to go down over here, so it's going to be free to move there and free to move there, heading into this port, paying 2 for that good over there, taking this and being able to move up my wood by 2, because whenever you sell to the bottom two resources in each spot, you're going to get resources and or coins for that. And again, I get one of these as well, and these all slide down. That's going to be a more efficient trading action over there. Additionally, there are krill spots in the game. There's krill in the game where whenever you pick up or deliver on krill, you get to simply move your krill marker up 1, and you can do that even while having a good in your hold, which is going to give you some flexibility as how you make sure the krill is constantly coming in. If you have 3 transports in play, you can be using 1 or 2 transports to constantly get yourself krill while you move the other transport around the board. There's a lot of ways to try to build out your network in the game. And so that's the sequence of a round. You're going to have 5 action discs. You'll set 1 action disc aside. You have 4 more action discs. You can place your 4 action discs either to gather resources, to get new people with abilities ongoing in end game, things like that. You can go to one of these 5 action spots, or you can go onto a port over here, and the last person left on each port, meaning these 2 players are going to get a port action. I will not, because I've unfortunately been covered. So over here, this player can go ahead, this red player can go ahead and take 3 krill, and the blue player can simply put down one of their things so on any purple region to go ahead and put another port into play. Past that, you can also put down a disc if you want. So for example, let's say I put this down over here, I could take the action over here, or you can take 3 wood or steel equal to the number of discs on there, including your own. So I could take 3 wood or steel instead, giving you a bit of flexibility when you need specific resources, or when you want one of these cards for the bottom action, but not actually for where you would otherwise build a port or transport. And that's the idea of how the game plays out. You're doing it across 4 rounds of play, and let's talk about how you score points in the game, because that's going to be a big part of it. So first of all, every single one of these tokens you sell is going to be worth a point. On the back of these tokens, they're all worth 1 point, and so that's going to be a point every time you sell in general, past the resources you're gaining. These bottom corners over here, all the corners, not the bottom corners, they're worth 2 points instead of 1, but you won't get any resource trade-ins instead, so you won't have the flexibility of being able to get the resources where you do over here, plus there's sometimes in the edges making them possibly a little harder to get to. There's also going to be network points in the game. You're going to have the ability, if you connect this, and these are variable, there's 4 or 3 or 4 for each faction in the game, so there is some degree of variability, but these tokens over here, when you place them out, this particular city, Varanus over here, wants to be connected to Leticia, and if you connect it through a chain of your whales, of your transports or ports, so for example, if I have that like that, and then, you know, another whale down over here, I can go ahead and claim this by showing, look, I have a connected, actually I'd have to have this here, look, I have a connected chain of regions down to those locations, and I can go ahead and take one of my discs and put it on the 6 if I'm the first player, or 3 if I'm on the second or third or fourth player, etc., although there are different for different player counts, 6, 4, and 2 in a 3 or 4 player game, and 2 or 3 player game is going to be, or 3 or 4 player game, and 2 or 3 is going to be like this over here. So you can get points for connecting different networks, up to 6 points per tile. I'm realizing these are the wrong side because I currently have it set up for a 3 player game on this. You're also going to get points for the majority of goods sold for each region. you're going to count up the point values on the back of your goods, and in addition to the points the goods are worth themselves, whoever has the most for each of the 4 colors, for each of the 4 regions in the game, is going to get an additional 5 bonus points. Ties are split down. You're going to have 2 points for having the wheel. You're going to have points for any of your cards. So for example, this card over here gives you 3 points for every set of things you have in each of the 4 regions in the game. There's going to be a bunch of these reward you for being on certain types of areas, giving you end game points as well. And that is basically how you're going to play through Mistwind. You're placing out your cards, you have your chips, you're trying to place your chips down in different actions, you're trying to figure out how to most efficiently set up a network, because at the end of every single action, so again, if you have 4 actions per turn and 4 rounds per game, at the end of each of the 16 actions you're taking in the game, you have the opportunity to move all of your transports as long as you can afford their cost, which means as you build out a network in the game, you can start ramping up just how much you're getting done every single turn, the amount of deliveries, the amount of stuff you have happen in this game, and we haven't even talked about the fact you're going to have your own individual goal card as well. These individual goal cards are going to give you extra points for connecting certain regions to certain regions. So Olushnik over here, Olushnik wants to be connected to these 2 regions over here, to this, and if you achieve both those, you'll get 6 points. If you achieve one of them, you'll get 3 points. You can cash that in the middle of the game as soon as you do so. And so you're just trying to ramp up all these different ways of getting points in Mistwind as you build up your network and go towards a pick up and deliver experience. Which brings me to the review, starting off with ease of play. The rulebook on this is very much a prototype rulebook. I would say it was not the clearest, not the hardest to get through. It was very easy to learn the game, but then there were lots of questions, and iconography is definitely a factor as well. I would say the iconography in the game is okay, but not necessarily amazing, and the lack of a play rate in the initial rules made it harder. That is something I got my hands on after, and it helped with subsequent plays, but my first play is definitely a little bit of a frustration as I try to get through that. I think those are very much prototype issues, and I don't think you'll have to worry about those in the final game, but I want to note that for the record and all that. As far as game length, this comes in at roughly an hour for the experience. I'm sure it can vary based on player count or how long you take, because especially later rounds, your turns can take a long time as you try to min-max and optimize how you're going to move your transports around the board, how you can feed into making sure everything works on this framework, how you can get as many goods sold or picked up every single turn as possible, how do you build out your networks in ways that that satisfy your character cards, but also your personal goal, but also the various ways these cities want to be connected, and then also these achievements. These achievements are also going to vary every game. So for each of these over here, you're going to have a different token you're going to have 3 different tokens, means different variety as far as how these want to be connected to different areas. You're also going to have different achievements for each of these. So you have a host of different achievements. This is the first player to build 6 outposts. 6 outposts are going to get 3 points. The player who goes ahead and gets 12 wood and steel is going to get 3 points. You have all these different aspects here of the different things you're trying to get your hands on, and they're going to mix up the gameplay as well every single game, feeding into what you're trying to get done. And so that's going to be as far as, I think that was ease of play, and I don't know why I focused in, I think I was focusing on the game length over there. I got distracted focusing on the game length. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking though, what I like kind of feeds into how I got distracted over there, which is there's a lot to consider in this game. There's a lot of things to think through as you play through this. The game starts off and it seems fairly procedural as, okay, I need resources to build stuff, so I'm going to get resources, then I'm going to build stuff. The actions seem kind of cool too though. Plus, of course, there's character cards. Those are always fun. And they start building things, and as soon as you start building things, the entire game changes. Having transports in play changes the entire way you play the game. It means you can start harvesting krill. It means you can start picking up resources. Getting transports into play fast means you can start having a lot of flexibility, but if you focus on transports as opposed to outposts, as opposed to resources, you may not have the economy needed to actually move around the board. You need to be mindful of these giant whales that survive and thrive on krill harvesting as they move flying across the giant vast landscapes of the world, and you're trying to balance all that in the game, and there's a lot to think through. The theme and production in general, and this is very much a prototype, but the theme is very fun, like giant whales moving across the board, dropping stuff off. The board itself has a very lo-fi artwork style to it, which does allow you to kind of see everything you need to see, while again feeding into that whole theme and production and everything there. The amount you get done in this game, and again, this game is like, maybe a little over an hour, 60 to 90 minutes, depending on your player count group and all that. As far as just how much you get crammed in every single game, there's a lot that happens, and those later rounds really pick up because there's so much you're thinking through. There's so much to consider as far as what you're trying to get done, as far as how you're trying to get your points, being mindful of the other players. There's lots of interaction in this game between vying for the various spots, because again, it's worker placement, there's limited spots, but it's worker placement with reduced information as you go through it. As you start to place out your 5s, if both players place out their 5s, I know that I can place my 5 down here and it won't be sat on top of as well. So you're really paying attention to what the players are doing, both in terms of the numbers of the chips they place out, as well as the resources they have, because getting those bonus 5 points at the end of the game, I mean, in a game that generally goes for 40 to 60 points, getting those extra 5-point bonuses in a region that you sold the most to is a big deal. And trying to track how that feeds into the various achievements in the game, that's another thing you want to be mindful of. Everything feeds into itself. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you're slowly working and building towards not necessarily unlimited movement, but towards a network and a grid that allows your transports to fly around the board with greater freedom. Early rounds, you're going to start moving your whale one step at a time and feeling accomplished for doing just that. But as you move into the second half of the game, you are able to get a lot more flexibility as far as how you take advantage of the network you've built. And you may want to go ahead and deliver down here because it's extra points. It might give you that, that 5-point bonus, but you may have to choose to stay within your framework because you don't necessarily have enough krill to work off of, and having a bunch of towers in one area allows you to do routes back and forth and constantly get those things done. The game is incredibly rewarding. Again, I don't like pick up and deliver, but this didn't really feel like such a slog of pick up and deliver. I shouldn't say I don't like pick up and deliver. I should say that pick up and deliver has been a harder mechanic for me to always appreciate, and I very much appreciated how it was implemented here. It felt like you were working towards a tableau, building things up, taking advantage of abilities and locations. Everything in the game just gives you a lot of things to consider in the game as you go forward. And it has a good sense of variability too, because you can have variability from the achievements, you can have variability from your own private goals, you can have the order of the way these cards come out, and I make no mistake, as with every game, I want more variability. We'll talk more about that in my final thoughts, but overall, the game gives you a lot of things to consider, different ways to approach the challenge, and just so much fun as you build out your networks. That's the whole challenge, because getting 3 transports in play is a big deal, but building out a system of outposts so your whales can actually move around the board, that is just as much of a big deal. Versus harvesting resources early game might give you the economy to do things, but if other players are starting to cash in and get points and sales early and dropping things off and getting those victory points, it may be harder for you to catch up and get those victory point bonuses back. Plus, of course, if you build routes or networks from these regions, that's like a bunch of extra points, 6 or 5 points for each of these regions, depending on how far they are, depending on which location or token there is. You're getting a bunch of points as well for connecting those things out, but you can't get everything, and so there's just so much to think through and consider, but a lot of it just comes down to trying to build up your tableau, build up your network, build out your transports, and get it all done in the most efficient way across those 4 rounds of play, which starts off feeling like there's not enough time, but by the time you get to the second half, your turns are taking longer because you're getting a lot more done. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, players taking your location bonus can feel good and bad at the same time, meaning specifically on these ports over here, whoever's the last chip on top gets the bonus, which on the one hand, I like the tactical strategy approach that it lends itself to. First of all, you have to be mindful of what order you place your things in. Second of all, you're paying attention to the other people's discs on the board and seeing what they've already committed, because that might give you guaranteed spots on these bonuses down here. And that also feeds into turn order. If you're first in turn order, you get certain bonuses before others, you get certain placement locations to people, to characters, to resources, to actions before others, but going last ensures that you are guaranteed to get that little bonus in the end here because you can place your disc last onto a stack. So it adds a lot to the tactical nature of the game. The problem is, it also is not necessarily a feel-good moment. When you place down 2 chips, and there will be turns where this happens, there'll be turns where you place down multiple chips on this board over here. Let's grab my 4 over here, place this down, and then even though I place down multiple chips, other players will both cover my chips and I'll get nothing for it while they both get their endgame bonuses. That's not a feel-good moment, and so I both like the tactical aspect that going last on the ports adds to the game, while also acknowledging that sometimes it lends itself to not feel good moments in the game. I'll also say that sometimes the endgame bonuses on these chips, the end round bonuses, don't lend themselves to the end game bonuses, meaning you get these bonuses at the end of each round on these ports over here, and that can be very helpful and very important, and you're vying for them a lot. They are a big deal. The ability to build multiple locations, the ability to get a free outpost down the board, the ability to move your whale across the board 4 spots. There's a lot of freedom and flexibility you get from these bonuses, but then some of them, so for example these over here, these are giving you things that if you get these on the last round of play, they're not helpful. Getting 3 extra krill when the game is over doesn't help you. Being able to pick up 2 goods when it's the last round of play, there's nothing to do, doesn't help you. So I'd say maybe 25-35% of the cards in this deck give you bonuses that if you get them in the last round of play, they are useless, and that is a little less fun. I kind of want to see something done about that as far as giving you a way that these always feel important to get those end of round bonuses. As it currently stands, they're important for the first 3 rounds, and then some of them are important for the last round of the game. As far as I can see others not liking in the game, first of all, every single action counts so much in this game, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It just means that there's a lot of pressure to be efficient in the early rounds. This is a game that if you know how to play the game, and you're playing against others who don't, unless you really help and guide others through how things work, you will probably stomp them because you just have a better sense of what those first rounds of play look like. That first time I played this, when I dove into it for the first time, the sense or knowledge as far as how much things mattered, as far as how important it was to get your outposts out, your transports out, the nature of where to put them out, even just where, the idea of having certain locations on the board that might be better than others, especially early game. Like early game, having a placement bonus of your whale on a krill spot is likely better because you need that krill coming in, and even just getting that krill harvesting up in play is a big factor in this. And so the amount you pick up from the first game to the second game means there is that aspect of you may well stomp others because of how tight this game is. This game is both light in terms of how much is going on. It doesn't give you that much stuff to consider, but it's mentally taxing in terms of how important it is to weigh up each and every action you take and how well it feeds into all the things you're trying to achieve in the game. Additionally, I'll say that getting blocked can limit your actions in a way that's just not necessarily fun. You have these numbers over here, and these other spots on the board they're limited to, so you may have planned to go here, and then that might completely fall apart as others take it. You may want a certain character card, and others may take that from you. And at least over here, you're definitely not limited. You can always place something down over here, but it certainly can be limiting as far as getting your actions there, because just being blocked in the game can take away from how much you can do. And I'll say that you don't see every card come out in a 4-player game. There's, I think, 25 cards in this deck over here, and you're putting out 5 every single round, which means in a 5-player game, because there's 5 rounds, you'll at least see every card come out. But in a 4-player game, you won't necessarily have all these cards come out, which means certain locations of the board may not come out, and there are always spots to build, there are always ways to build on the board without needing the specific port card that relates to that location. But it's a little harder. It means that you have to rely on characters or a little bonuses at the end of the round, as opposed to just being like, hey, this spot came out. And that can be a little frustrating, especially if your things that you're trying to go for, maybe your personal private goal card over here, might relate to 1 or 2 of those cards, and so there is that luck of the draw aspect as well as you go through it. Overall, not a big deal, but certainly something to be mindful of. As far as final thoughts on Mistwind, I really like Mistwind. I really, really like Mistwind. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this game. Make no mistake, when I first saw this game, I thought it looked beautiful, and it's definitely one that I was interested in, but also I knew it was pick up and deliver, and so I was torn between the fact that Daryl Andrews is a solid designer, the game art and production looked amazing, but pick up and deliver isn't a mechanism that I have usually kept in my collection. I find pick up and deliver often feels a bit tedious. I pick this up, I deliver it, I pick this up, I deliver it, rinse and repeat as you go through the game, and I'm sure you can make any game mechanic sound not that much fun if it's not a game mechanic for you, but just personally speaking, pick up and deliver is a game mechanic that I always find okay, but not necessarily amazing. I have a handful of pick up and deliver games that I've made it through, that have stuck around in my collection, and Mistwind to me really delivered on, well, pun not intended, really delivered on, I was going to say, not, it didn't deliver on what I was expecting, because I wasn't expecting it to deliver. I was expecting it to be a fun game that I enjoyed, that has good production values, and I play it, I go through it, and then I'm done with it. But I really like how tight the game is. The game is just so tight as far as you're moving your transports around the board, and building up your network and framework is such a huge key aspect of this game. The ability to move for free when you have such a limited amount of krill is so important, and so how you build out your network and how you take advantage of that network is so important to this game. You might get an extra 3 points by going down here with your whale to be able to, create that network and get those extra points or whatnot, but you may have to pay more krill to do so, and you may need that to maintain your krill resources, and it may be more efficient for you to be able to take other actions, not worry as much about your krill, and be able to take advantage of your existing outposts. And you have to be able to adapt to what players are doing in the game. It's so well done. It's so streamlined, it's so smooth, and it's so satisfying. It really took me by surprise, and again, pick up and deliver just isn't as much my area. There are things that I want to see more variability from. In games like this, I find the biggest challenge as far as how long it lasts for me is the variability. How long does it stay fresh to me game to game? And this one already is doing a good job so far. Again, just the nature of the way the cards come out, the order of the cards, the fact they all have different abilities on them, the nature of the fact that you have these achievements in play that are going to shift it up every single game, and you have these locations with slightly adjust things, plus of course your private goal, means even on the same map, there's enough changes to what's happening to keep it fresh and interesting, but I of course still want more. I want to see more actions, unique actions that show up game to game. I want to see more characters, more ports, not necessarily more, because I think you need that distribution. Maybe more maps. More maps could be a fun thing as well. I really like what Mistwind is doing. For me, this is currently a 4 out of 5, and I think if anything, it might go up over time. I'm hesitant to see. I don't know where it goes over time. For right now, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, but we'll see where this one ends up for me. Right now, I'm really enjoying how smooth, how quick, how fast, how streamlined Mistwind is. As far as other game recommendations, specifically the other pick up and deliver games that have worked for me, I'd say Istanbul. This game has Very different than Istanbul, but similar in the sense that they're both very accessible and yet give you a lot of strategy and things to consider through it. Istanbul is definitely a pick up and deliver game that has very much worked for me, almost because of the unique puzzly nature of how you move around the board, ricocheting back and forth between spreading out and then jumping back to where your students are. Very fascinating mechanic that I absolutely love. The expansions really elevate the experience for me. And then Xia Legends of a Drift System as well. That's another pick up and deliver game, a giant epic space sandbox of a game. Very, very different game weight than Mistwind or Istanbul, but it has a lot going on, and I really enjoy and recommend Xia Legends of a Drift System. If you're looking for other pick up and deliver games, both Istanbul and Xia I think are the two main ones that are around in my collection. In any case, and until next time, hope you found this review helpful. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.